As God was tired of this, she created humans only for them to rebel, only for them to eat an apple and lose the ability to love in exchange for knowledge. So she created hell. God sat back and watched everything, bored, leaving it to Sarah and the Seraphims. However, one day, after season 1, she would hear the news that Adam, her first creation, her first child, in a way, died as she began to walk heaven angrily. As she was disgusted with her creations on earth, she tried to flood them, gave them a second chance, and it still failed. And now the creations on hell, or even killing the creations in heaven, this simply can't do. She thought about destroying the whole universe and restarting over. But that would be too cruel even for her. She has a better idea. By the way, VisiPop confirmed that God is a female in their universe. That's why I'm calling her a she, if you guys didn't know. Some of my older videos, I said he, but that's because I didn't know. So yeah, if I refer to God in the show, it's going to be a woman from now on. So let's continue. As the great God looked down upon hell, she went to heaven. As Lute was there, sighing, imagining Adam, singing about revenge, singing about him, she would open the door and say, "Are you singing again? You know, music used to be my favorite thing in the world. That's why I made hell and heaven such a musical experience. But now, those voices haunt me." As then, God would look at Lute, and Lute would say, "God, I am sorry about our failure." But God would say, "Do you honestly think I wanted you to kill those people? I made hell to separate them from heaven, not for them to die. It's time that I end the experiment, that's hell, that I destroy it once and for all." Lute would say, "Heck yeah, that's what I'm talking about, sister." As suddenly God would begin to choke Lute. Such insolence. You're just like the rest of them. Humans. Men were slightly stronger. I made them that way to protect women. But instead, they use it to have power for themselves and say that I am a man. It's pathetic. She then threw her across the room. You are a woman just like me. However, you use your hatred and your power for revenge. You're just like the rest of them. Just like a sinner. You belong in hell, but you're lucky. I won't do that to you. As then, she just simply walked away as Lute shook in fear. Lute fought many men and many women. She's been across the battlefield, slaughtered in sinners, and even before she was a fighter, Lute always fought. But for the first time ever, she saw someone that she wouldn't dare to fight against. God's power was enormous, and it made her quiver just thinking about it. As then we cut to Charlie. Charlie was enjoying herself with Baggy, as they both had dinner. They were celebrating victory. They were celebrating peace. They were celebrating so much as they ate together, as they loved each other. Everything seemed so happy now. Everything is so much better. Until Charlie would feel something weird. You see, Charlie could sense the pure, holy energy since she was strong enough, and it began to hurt her. She couldn't deal with it. As she started to scream, she grabbed her hair. Vaggie would hold her and say, "What's wrong?" "Nothing, I just want to go to bed." As Vaggie put Charlie in bed, Charlie would go to sleep that night, only to dream about God. As in the dream, Charlie looked around. All the buildings were destroyed. Everything was a wasteland, and God would walk up to her and say, "Listen here." God would simply stare at Charlie, as Charlie would look up and stare back. As their gaze both met for a while, Charlie knew who it was instantly. Lucifer talked very little about God at all, but for what she heard, she knew God was very powerful. Charlie would say, "So this is God, huh? You thought of a man, didn't you?" Charlie would say, "Yeah, everyone thinks of a man." She would then sigh. "Anyway, that's not the point. I've decided to destroy hell. And I'll give you a test. If you can survive for 1 week, I'll bring it back. I'll create something truly hellish, a hell that should exist, a hell that I originally intended." As she started to walk away, Charlie would say, "Please don't do this." As then, God would say, "Silence. If you are worthy, I'll bring back your friends. It's a fair trade." She then disappeared. As Charlie would wake up, she would run down to Vaggie and say, Oh, it was just a dream, Charlie would say. As Vaggie would say, what was? She hugged her and said, don't worry, Vaggie, I'll make sure. Suddenly, she felt something. It sounded like a giant nuke being lit off. She could hear screams and cries everywhere. As she turned around, Angel would start to melt. So did Alistair. So did everyone around her. As then Vaggie would hug her and say, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Charlie would say, it's okay. You won't go. I promise, darling. You'll... As then she melted. As the hotel itself melted into liquid, she looked around to see everything melted. She walked and began to scream out in agony, scream out in pain, but she couldn't do anything but walk. And there was nothing around her but just death and destruction. Charlie kept on moving through the destruction, through the pain, through everything. She knew there had to be more. Her father, she had to survive, right? As she began to run to look for Lucifer, she would find him in a cage. Lucifer would say, Charlie. She came. Charlie would say, why does God hate us so much? Lucifer would say, I messed up everything. She created humans to be ignorant, to be innocent, and I ruined it. She's never been the same since. And now, since you're the sinner, she said, she's upset about it, but also intrigued. She wonders if this is proof that she was wrong. But whatever happens, you need to. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard as Charlie would turn around to see hideous monsters charging towards her. As we cut to Sir Pentious in heaven. As Sir Pentious was talking to Sarah and Emily, suddenly God herself would walk in. As Sarah would say, God, listen, she would say, leave us. Sarah would say, but leave us. As Sarah and Emily would walk away. As they would shut the door, Sir Pentious would say, so you're God, you're a woman. As she would sigh and say, yes, yes, yes. Anyway, I want to get to know you. You are the first sinner to ever be redeemed, you know. A sinner, someone who's been casted away, someone who wasn't worthy to be up here, to be around me, is now up here. Sir Pentious began to shake and say, yeah, ma'am, well, it's just, great Lord above. As then she would laugh and say, don't worry about it. If you made it here, then you truly must be worthy. And, well, if you're worthy, then welcome aboard, Sir Pentious. She would then smile at him as he would smile back and say, thank you. As then she would walk out the door. God would then walk up to Emily and Sarah and say, I have a solution. Sarah would say, what? I've tested Charlie to see if she's truly righteous. If she is, this redemption will continue. If not, I'll get rid of him. As then she left, Emily would say, how does she test him? As Sarah would go, I don't know, but either way, we must do our jobs. As then we cut to Charlie, as these beasts were huge. They were 10 feet tall, had oozes out their mouths, and looked like radioactive creatures. As Charlie would try to fight them, she couldn't hit them, but they began to push her down. As then Lucifer would say, use love. Charlie would say, what? Use love, hug it. As then Charlie would hug it. It would then hug back. That was the secret, not the fight, but to use love and compassion. Lucifer would say, go, Charlie. Do not fight back. Do not hurt others. You have no enemies right now. All this is a test to see how righteous your heart is. If your heart is truly righteous, then, well, you'll succeed. Charlie would say, thanks, Dad. As then he began to disappear. She said, what's going on? I never existed, Charlie. I died with that bomb. You're just imagining me. As then he faded away, Charlie would simply begin to cry. As she walked around, she began to feel hungry, thirsty, but she would tap into her emotions. She would tap into her feelings. To use love and compassion. These emotions would begin to damper it as she walked around, helping others, helping monsters, and living her life. The week was lonely. It was harsh, but she could do it. The week was truly brutal, but she managed to go through it. Starvation, thirst, all of it was nothing compared to true love, compared to true compassion. As she did this, the town would come back. Her people would come back. Everything around her reappeared like nothing bad ever happened. As we cut back to God, she would say, Charlie is worthy. Looks like this hell experiment is actually useful. She would start to walk off. As Sarah would say, what are you going to do now, my lord? You can take it from here. I have another idea. As she simply just left. As heaven and hell were back like nothing ever happened. However, Charlie will never forget what happened, and she'll never forgive her.